you're solving quadratic equations, whenever you solve them, regardless of which method you use, you always have to make sure that it's set equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is have x squared, make it a positive x squared. Then I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides and make sure that it's set equal to 0. Now I'm going to go through my methods. So square rooting says only works when there is no bx term. Well, I have a bx term, so I cannot square root. Factoring. Factoring says that I must look for a GCF first. Okay, I don't see a GCF. Then I would have a quadratic trinomial. Well, I have that. So I would check to say what multiplies to a negative 2. So I'd have a 1 and a 2. And then I need it to add to a negative 3. Well, that's not possible. So because it's impossible, I can't factor. The next thing that I would try to do is I would try graphing. When you try graphing, you plug it in. Again, it has to equal 0, so it would be x squared minus 3x minus 2. I hit graph. Okay, so now when I do this, I hit graph and I see that there are 2 possible solutions. When I see that there are 2 possible solutions, I do second trace. I do a 0. Again, I have to go to the left, so I can either use the left cursor or I can type in a number. I have to go to the right, hit enter, and take a guess. Now when I do this, I get a decimal answer. I get negative 0.562. Again, I'm going to round to 3 decimal places. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here. Graphing, I get a negative 0.562 as one of my solutions. I would do the same thing, second trace, 0. Again, I need to find the other one, so I can either use my arrow. This would be to the left. To pick something to the right, maybe an 8. Notice that my guess is in between here. Looks about 3. And I get a 3.562 as my other option for x. So 3.562. So these are some answers or approximate answers for x. Now whenever we solve things, we want exact answers. So because the first 2 didn't work and graphing only gave us decimals, we definitely need to try quadratic formula because quadratic formula works for every single problem that we're going to see. So here's our quadratic formula. Again, it's important that you write out your a, your b, and your c coefficients, and then we're just going to substitute them in. Once you substitute them in, being very careful of your negative signs, you're now going to simplify. Again, being very careful of my negative signs, a negative times a negative makes it a positive 8. Continue simplifying, so I have x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 17 divided by 2. Now, I can't simplify the 17 anymore, and I can't simplify my fractions. So this is officially my exact answer for this. Now, we can double check this by making sure that, again, is it similar to what we saw our decimals? So if I would do this and double check my calculator, it's 3. I'm going to do plus the square root of 17, I'm closing that parenthesis there, and I'm making sure my whole numerator is in parentheses and dividing that by 2. Now notice that is one of the answers that I got on my calculator, but now it's in exact form. I can do the same thing. I'm just going to hit second enter, because that does the same exact thing that I typed in, so I don't have to retype it in. And I'm going to change this to a subtraction sign. So now I'm doing the positive and the negative. Push enter, and notice that is the decimal version that we found in our calculator graphing. But this down here is my exact answer, and that's how I would like it written when we ask for exact form.